Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we're taking a look at a power supply that you should never actually buy. Well, unless it's on offer, in which case it's an absolute steal. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so in today's video we'll be taking a look at the Corsair CX series 450M, or the CX450M as otherwise known. This is an 80 plus bronze semi-modular mini power supply. Yep, that's right, I said mini. It's not quite SFX mini, but it is certainly a little bit smaller than other power supplies on the market. This comes in at 140mm, so if you're looking at putting this into a rather modest or minimal system where you don't have a lot of room, or maybe some cases just don't have a lot of room in that basement section with drive cages, etc., then this might be worth a shout if your system comes in with the power requirements. Now this is a 450 watt power supply. Obviously if you want to, you can get bigger ones, 550s, 650s, etc. in the same range. But if you want to save some money potentially, the 450 might actually do the trick. And if you're running a relatively modest system, something along the lines of a Ryzen 5 3600 and possibly maximum of 2060 Super, actually in terms of wattage, this isn't far off the bat, so it could be the power supply for you. Or if you're just doing a cheap flip build with an older system, then this is going to be absolutely fine. Now, what I said in the beginning about you should never buy this. You really shouldn't buy this at its full retail price. Now, full retail price at the moment on Amazon and places like Corsair's actual own site here in the UK, this thing retails for somewhere in the region of about 50 quid, sometimes as much as 55, 56 pounds. That is insanity. Please, please do not buy it at that price. But at this time of year, which at the moment, this is October 2022, we're coming in towards Black Friday and also obviously Amazon flash deals, all that kind of good stuff. When this is actually on offer, which this one actually was, you can pick this up for as low as £25, which I think actually for 25 quid, you can't go too far wrong. And actually this was purchased by one of the channel viewers, Dave Aitken. He no longer needed it for the projects he was doing, so I took it off his hands for the same price. Thanks Dave, much appreciated. And yeah, I thought I'd do a quick unboxing on it, go through the specs and kind of see if this is actually worthwhile buying for people in 2022, going into 2023. There's a lot of CPUs which are coming out on the market which are rather power hungry, so clearly this isn't intended for you guys, but for everyone else, yeah, stay tuned. So let's take a look at the packaging first of all. As you can see, it is in the rather sickly, typical Corsair packaging style there. So you've got the horrendous yellow with the black. Tells you exactly what it is. It's part of the CXM series. This is the CX450M, as we've already said. Semi-modular power supply, 80 plus bronze rated. Something it does actually mention on here as well, on the back of the box, is obviously things like power requirements and power ratings, that sort of stuff. But also the fact it's got a 5-year warranty. A 450 watt power supply with a 5-year warranty is actually quite a rare thing these days, especially in the lower end, especially if you're buying this as a kind of £25 power supply. If you're buying it as a £55 power supply, hey, I want a 10-year warranty for that sort of money, but hey, it is what it is. It also says in the back there about the ultra low noise. Now this actually has a really nice little fan on there, 120mm fan rifle bearings, and actually has been set with a really nice profile. So basically when it's just on, almost passive, you can barely hear it at all. Once you're ramping up and you're getting into kind of like 75% of what the power supply can put out, it does ramp up a little bit, but still is exceptionally quiet. So let's take a look at what we actually get in the box. So obviously power supply, get that. You get the important information, which do what you like with that. But you also get things like accessories. So you get some screws to actually attach it into your case, which is always nice. And a bunch of cable ties to do cable management, although realistically there aren't that many cables to manage, so you may or may not need those. You get some cables coming in as well, so you get obviously a power cable for your particular region. We're in the UK, so we've got the traditional kind of 13 amp 3-pin plug with the kettle lead style connection on the end. And you get 3 modular cables, so not a great deal to get excited by, but this is a low wattage unit, so you're probably not going to need that anyway. So cable wise, first of all, we've got a MOLEX style connection, or basically the kind of 4-pin style. So you get 3 connectors on this particular lead, plus an additional one for floppy drives. So if you've got maybe a fan setup which uses a powered hub, then sometimes you can use those. In actual fact, I've noticed recently Thermaltake, their fan controllers actually are using that connector, so that could be handy for some. Cable length, when you're looking at the cables, this is 450mm to the first connection and a total length of 770mm. So yeah, pretty long cable, pretty decent. It's got a reasonable gauge wire there, nothing to get too excited about, but yeah, does the job absolutely fine. Next one is going to be our SATA cable. So there's actually 4 connections on there, all of which, again, same sort of deal, reasonable gauge cable. I do like the flat black cables, quite nice for cable management purposes. When it comes to length, we're looking at 380 millimeters to the first cable from the power supply, and then a total length of 700 millimeters. So yeah, pretty decent on there. Nice bit of length on there if you've got a slightly larger case. The last one is going to be our PCI Express graphics card cable. So again, slightly higher quality gauge cable in there, so a little bit thicker. You've got 2 connections on here for 8 pins, which is the usual kind of 6+2 setup. These are pigtailed, so there is only 1 connection going to the power supply. Some people not always overly happy with that. Fortunately, most modern graphics cards these days, especially some of the lower powered ones, are either a 6 or just a single 8. So I don't think you're going to need to use both anyway, but they are there should you need to. When it comes to length, you're looking at 600mm from the start of the cable to the first connection, and then it's 650mm total length. So only a little bit of extra length there for that pigtail. So now let's take a look at the power supply. So the power supply actually, it's a nice looking power supply to be fair. Nice chamfered edges on the side there, nice bit of design choices there. Corsair logo embossed or kind of molded into that. Nice angled sections there, the typical triangles which you see on a lot of Corsair products, so in keeping with a lot of their stuff. The fan, like I said, 120mm low noise unit. Can't go wrong with that, absolutely fine. I have taken this apart and had a look inside so you can see the model number on the back of the fan. It's nothing special, and obviously if you want to replace it you can do, and I've shown you the connection as well, just a standard 2-pin connection on there, so you can swap this out should you want to for maybe a notch or something, should you feel the need to. On the sides, usual stuff, so we've got the logo on the side, Corsair and CX450M on that side, and if you're mounting it the other way round, then on that side it's upside down, or vice versa, however you want to look at it. On the back, a little bit of cutout again, using those Corsair triangles. Nice clicky power switch, and obviously the power receptacle for plugging into the mains. And there's even a little tiny Corsair logo on there, which, although completely unnecessary and probably never going to be seen, is a nice touch regardless. On the top of the power supply, you've got a Corsair tag on there telling you all about it. And on the 12-volt rail, for those of you that are interested, this puts out 448 watts, so that is basically where they get their rating from. If you take into account the other rails, the 3.3 and the 5-volt, that adds on another 100 or so. So it is a little bit higher than 450 watts, but most power supplies, or at least decent ones these days, generally tend to go on what the 12-volt rail can put out rather than the total combined outputs. So taking a look at the cables which are actually captive to the unit itself, and I've actually got my power supply tester on there, so I'll take that off. So you've got a 24-pin connector, which is your main motherboard connection. This is actually a nice thing. It is a solid cable, so it's not a 20+4, it is just a straight 24, so you don't have to worry about the extra 4 just splitting off when you're trying to put it into your motherboard. That always frustrates me, so it's nice to see it's a solid block. Decent gauge cabling, and also it is braided all the way back. Even though the cables are blacked out anyway, it doesn't really need the braiding, but it's nice that it's there. A little bit of extra protection. The other cable, which is captive, is going to be your EPS or CPU connection. This is a single 8-pin, but you can split it in half to have a 4-pin should you wish to, for slightly older systems, that kind of thing. When it comes to lengths, you're looking at 600mm for the 24-pin, and the 4+4 EPS is 660mm. So decent amount of length there. Should be fine for most systems, nothing out of the ordinary, but yeah, quite nice cabling. Again, if you're picking this up for 25 quid, I think it is absolutely great. Now let's talk a little bit more about the connectivity on the back. So this is semi-modular, like we said, so you've also got your captive cables coming off of there. You have got 3 extra connections there on the back, so that is SATA and PATA, or your peripherals. So on those 2 there, those are both on the 6-pin, and the 8-pin one there is for your PCI Express. So there's going to be absolutely no way you can get those confused. If you do plug in the SATA and the PATA around the opposite ways, it makes no difference, it's absolutely fine. This is going to make building very, very easy to do. It's virtually impossible to go wrong here. So what we're also going to be interested in is what this power supply can actually do. So you've got all the usual stuff in there, sort of over voltage protection, under voltage protection, all those kinds of things. You've also got active power factor correction as well built in. Something which is actually quite interesting is this isn't made by Corsair, which they do make their own power supplies, obviously, and they do factor out other things as well to people. This is actually a Channelwell Technologies design, so CWT. They actually make some pretty decent power supplies. And actually what was quite interesting, when I took this apart and had a look inside to have a look at the capacitors, etc., the actual main system capacitor, or the kind of the biggest one in there, is actually the same one that they use in a lot of their very high-end power supplies, and that is actually made by Nippon, so it's their Chemicon I think that's what they call it, Chemicon, part of their KMR series, which actually is a really, really decent capacitor. Like I said, they use this in a lot of their high-end power supplies, and they've even used them in some of the, I think it's the ATX 1200s and things like that. So it's actually a really good capacitor set in there. Clearly, there has been corners cut in places, so the whole thing isn't really good, but the main capacitor is a 105 degree rated one. Can't fault that at all. If you want to know a lot more about the actual capacitors and what is actually inside here, there was a really good review at Hardware Busters. I'll put a link for that in the video description below, and it goes into massive depth on what this can and can't do. And actually they give it a pretty glowing report, especially considering its competition in that 450 kind of 500 watt power supply range. And in fact, in most of the tests, it did come out towards the top end. So yeah, definitely if you're looking for a relatively cheap, inexpensive power supply, the CXM 450 watt semi-modular might be just up your street. But like I said at the beginning, and I've mentioned previously, do not buy this at the normal retail price. At somewhere around about the £50 mark, I don't think this is good value for money at all, but certainly do keep a lookout for it in the bargains, especially things like Black Friday sales, Christmas sales, all that kind of stuff, flash deals. Maybe you want to keep in your basket to see when prices drop. If you want to see when prices drop, obviously if you're a member of our Discord, then it will definitely be posted in the bargain section, so keep an eye out for that. If not, if I do see them come out as a bargain sometime or other, I'll post it in our community tab. So make sure you're subscribed and click on that chime button and you'll be notified of future video releases and also posts to the community tab. So there you go, that has been the Corsair CXM450 modular, or semi-modular I should say. Excellent value for money when it's on offer, horrible value for money when it's not, but I'll let you be the decider. So that's going to wrap it up. I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.